Hello, everybody. It's me, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, BMR. It's October 30th. It's Devil's Night. But this isn't about Devil's Night. This is about an alleged skinwalker or Sasquatch. The email I got said, "Hey, Rob, please advise, or could you have people leave a comment to help me with what this was?" This took place some time ago. I watch your show. I've been a subscriber for 6 months, and I really would like some clarity on this. So if you would, here's my story. So I'm going to get on with it. And again, you guys, leave a thought, a comment. Don't forget to like and share me out. Here we go. When I was a teenager in the late 1970s, we lived year round in a remote area next to a large lake that was rapidly developing as a weekend getaway for urbanites at the time. The countryside was hilly and heavily wooded with streams and ravines. The hills have rock outcroppings and caves. By the time I was 14, I was roaming all around out there and often strayed miles away from home. I can recall only one incident that spooked me personally. It would have been 1977, and I was 15 years old, and I was at least 3 miles from home, out hiking, and was working my way down a fairly steep decline, probably about 50 degrees or more, on a day in the late fall. This area had several large outcroppings and caves, and there were a few massive trees growing on the slope and many smaller ones. What happened was all of a sudden I got that proverbial tingling feeling at the back of my neck that I was being watched. Not only watched, but glared at. By that time in my life, I had already spent many days and nights out camping in the woods, and I spent hiking and fishing. I had never had a sensation like this before. I glanced around a little, but I did not look up. Whatever or whoever it was, I did not want them to realize that I knew they were there. I felt like that might provoke an attack or something, as odd as that may sound. I had a hunting knife with me and put my hand on the hilt. I also found a sturdy stick to use as a club if need be. So this guy right off the bat, you guys, is scared. Not looking up. He's got this sensation of being watched and glared at, okay? I quickly made my way down the rest of the slope. I knew that there was a forest trail at the bottom of it, and that the trail intersected a road a half mile or way up. So when I reached the trail, something let but a reverberating yet somewhat high pitched scream back up the hill. Within 100 yards or so from where I sat, I didn't turn back to look. I just took off running. It let out another scream a few seconds later, but my impression was that it had not moved. As I said, the scream was fairly high pitched, but it had tremendous volume to it. I recall somebody having something similar happen to them, aka me. It just seemed to reverberate all down the hillside. It was lower pitched and too throaty to be a bobcat, which I had heard many times in the past. We weren't supposed to have mountain lions anywhere near our area, and again, the sound seemed lower pitched than the screams I had heard them make on nature shows, but at the time, that is what I chalked up as it most likely being. I told my family and several friends about this, and anyhow, I never went back to that part of the woods without having a loaded firearm with me. A few years later, in 1984, I related this story to an elderly 80-year-old lady who lived in this area her entire life. She had literally been born within a few miles of where this is located. She was from a large Native American family. She got an odd look on her face and very serious tone in her voice, and told me I had encountered a skinwalker. She said that when she was a young girl, probably in the year 1920. She had a brother a few years older than her that came into the cabin one day very excited about having seen an animal he had never seen before. He had been out in the woods hunting squirrels. The best way to hunt squirrels is to stealthily make your way to an area with lots of large hickory trees, then stay very quiet, watching and listening for their movements. He said that what he was doing, he then caught a glimpse of something dark in one of the trees. He said at first he thought it was just a trick of light because it seemed to be a shadow that had moved on its own. He stayed quiet and hidden and watched and listened. The shadow began moving some more, and it made its way down a tree trunk fairly quickly. He described it as being 4 feet tall, built like a human, but somewhat hunched over, covered in long, dark, black brown hair. When the thing reached the ground, the young man made some sound, perhaps a gasp or sigh, and suddenly it stood completely upright, moving its head slightly side to side, looking over his way. He described the face as being somewhat human like, but covered with dark hair and with something of a protruding snout, and the eyes as being very large and light colored. It had an extremely angry look, even menacing. The thing bolted behind the tree and it was gone. A minute or so later, the young man heard a high pitched scream coming high up in the trees, which was answered by another scream that came from elsewhere. That was what spooked him and caused him to rapidly leave. After he told me the story to his family, the parents got serious and very worried and reminded and warned the children again about skinwalkers. They described them as being evil forest spirits, not as big as humans, but just as strong, and also cunning and very malicious. The skinwalkers are supposed to be masters of camouflage. Their dark colored and long fur or hair allow them to hide in the shadows under the trees very effectively. Plus, they have a tendency to only come out at night. The young man saw this thing just shortly before the sun set. The skinwalkers supposedly hate humans and will try to kill them if they can. Usually, they target young children, luring them to stay away from their homes by mimicking the sound of a kitten or puppy, or sometimes mimicking the sound of a baby crying or kids laughing. If the skinwalkers can get a young child alone in the woods, they will strangle them. Another tactic is to get older children or even small adults alone and into the water, lure them into the water like a creek or a pond. Then the skinwalkers will spring upon the victim and hold them underwater, drowning them. The elderly lady said what her parents warned them was that if they ever see a shadow more independently while out in the woods, you must keep your eyes down and pretend like you don't notice, but to go ahead and leave the area quickly, getting back to more lighted and open spaces. As an adult, I have heard and now researched a little about skinwalkers and realize the term is generally used to describe myths of shapeshifters among the Native Americans of the Southwest, like Navajos and Hopi. But I'm telling you the story exactly as it was told to me. Again, this was in eastern Oklahoma back in 1984 and describing an incident that would have occurred in an area around 1915 or 1920. When I was a young child, my parents, grandparents, and great grandparents warned me and other kids in our family to never stray into the woods by ourselves, and especially not if what we heard and thought was a kitten or a puppy. My family called it the booger man or child catcher, and basically said that there was something out there that would kill young children if it could catch them alone, but never gave any more description than that, other than it was big and dark. I realize that folks tell their children such things to scare the kids to keep them from wandering off and getting lost or hurt. But still, it makes you wonder if there might not be a kernel of truth behind the stories. One last thing about this story, the elderly lady told me that later on in life, she had seen television shows about wildlife from other parts of the world and had seen howler monkeys from South America. She had always thought those monkey images were somewhat like what she had and her brother had described to her. I don't know. We've all heard about the skinwalkers. Some of these things that was emailed to me, I'm not familiar with a lot of it with the kids regarding the skinwalkers. So this is a different take on it for me, you guys. I'd like to know what you guys think about that. What I found interesting is the description of the snout. It reminded me, frankly, more of a Dogman than anything, coupled with the aggression. Kind of what we hear in a lot of the Dogman stories. This is not a typical Bigfoot description at all, and it was very spooky. You know, I don't know. Help me out. I have my thoughts, but this is only supposed to be a 12 or 13-minute video. Maybe I'll do it on a show and run it over with my buddy Tex and discuss it further. But I am Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I hope you enjoyed that tale, that encounter. Was it a skinwalker? Was it something from a different realm? I don't know. But it is Devil's Night, so I thought I'd throw that out for you. Kind of spooky. Go Lions. Thanks for buying my book. Leave a review for those that bought it when you get it. Share me out. Give me a like. Give me a thumbs up. I am Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And until next time, have a fantastic start to your week. Good day. Well, I got to find the button here. See ya.